How are you this afternoon?
I'm doing splendid.
You're doing a wonderful job. So to kind of follow up on your potential audit, looking at the governor's impasse, looking at it, some highlights of some areas you can start on. I would start on the waivers. They provide a good financial outlook at the administration's spending moving forward. There are areas of PDE spending on furniture, new furniture purchases during the impasse. Department of Agriculture, to facilitate a study on domesticated animals, started up.
By the way, it's probably not on camera, but my team is writing furiously. If you can't see that on camera there, so.
Very excited about this. The Department of Revenue Secretary sat there yesterday when I asked her about the waiver they applied that was supposed to implement the governor's tax increases of last budget, $10.2 million. They weren't sure how much of that was spent, and obviously there weren't any tax increases, so where that money is going. So it's loaded with those kind of errors, especially when looking at the overall spending and compared to PennWatch, about $30 billion of spending, $4 billion was on PennWatch. So trying to match up spending with what's out there in financial transparency to try to figure out where we're at with the budget, how much money is being spent, and trying to reconcile the expenditures with the budget that was passed and everything that entails. It's very difficult to unwind that without a good financial picture of where we're at.
On the PennWatch, for example, that system needs to be improved. Now, I think they're trying to work to get the kinks out. I don't think it's anything malicious, but for example, there was one point where about 2 months ago we had our total spend number for the year in our department was $29,000. Well, obviously somebody just entered, it wasn't intentional, they just entered something wrong there, because almost putting that in makes it, flags that there's something wrong. That system needs to get better. It's a great tool. We use it ourselves a lot to try to gather information. It's something that in today's day and age, the taxpayers are demanding that level of accountability, but it needs to get better. And I do believe they're trying to fix it, but that's one example where I just know that it's off from time to time, which defeats the purpose of having it.
Yeah, so I appreciate looking at that. One other thing I want to highlight, we spent a lot of time today, both parties, you talking about cost savings. The governor talks about cost savings. The Senate talks about cost savings. If we're looking to start closing out the 15-16 budget, moving forward with 16-17, all talking about the same thing,
right,
but it's not coming together.
Right.
How do we get everybody talking about cost savings on the same page to maybe start working on those functions in a bipartisan and continue building? Like, there's a lot of trust between the General Assembly and your office. You're transparent, you're honest, you're open, you're accountable, you're accessible, you provide good data, and you back that up. How does that translate moving into the governor's administration and the General Assembly, continue to try to get that same relationship and something we're all,
right.
We're all talking about it,
right,
but it's being missed.
Representative, it's a great question as to how everyone could be talking about the same thing and nothing gets done on it. There are those moments where you understand how the average person, whether they be liberal, moderate, or conservative, with very different views of the world and social issues and priorities, can get incredibly frustrated at Harrisburg and Washington, D.C. And this would be one of them. That, look, there's some issues where there's just going to be an agreement to disagree. There's just some social issues, there's just bridges there that, I'm not going to ask anyone to compromise their philosophical or moral views, and I would ask that no one do that to me. We can just have a fair discussion about that. But on this issue in particular, I don't think anyone is ever morally opposed to saving money. So this is incredibly frustrating that there isn't at least a meeting of the minds on this one. As to why that doesn't happen, the best thing I can throw on the table is, and I don't often quote Newt Gingrich, but when he said, if you don't worry about who's going to get the credit, it's amazing what can be accomplished.
Amen. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.